Hey everybody, how's it going? So I figured I would talk about the new Kawasaki KLR650 that they just announced. Everyone else seems to be talking about it, but I have a few pet peeves when I read the comments from fellow riders. Number one is sixth gear. Why didn't they add a sixth gear? Well, let's see. Because you can't just drop in a sixth gear and be like, hey, it was that easy. This is not a car transmission. This isn't something like on a vehicle where you got your engine and you got your transmission and you could just bolt up and make a flange or whatever adapter and fit, if you wanted, pretty much any transmission to an engine, you know? It would be really easy to develop a transmission outside of the engine. But look at motorcycles. The engine and transmission are basically one unit. You know, your connecting rod, your clutch, all that is that lower half of the engine. You're not going to be able to just add a sixth gear without redesigning the engine. And if you're going to redesign the engine, in those molds, that tooling that has been paid for a very long time, then it's just not cost effective to keep that bike at a cost point that is a budget bike, a budget adventure bike, a bike people know because of the cost. You develop a new engine, which would be awesome to see, but then you're talking about a $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 motorcycle. The more you develop from scratch in modern times where tooling hasn't been paid for from previous years, from previous generations, then you're going to pay more money. It's expensive to develop new molds and various processes for a new bike. It's much easier to take an engine and spread it across a product line like in automotive. It's much easier for Ford to take the same EcoBoost engine and put it in many different vehicles. It's cheaper for them, keeps the cost low. Otherwise you get vehicles that the costs keep going up, and then you got unique parts also between different engines. So same with motorcycles. You're going to have a higher cost motorcycle if you redesign that engine. You're like, but we're not talking about redesigning. We're talking about the transmission. They're all one unit on a motorcycle. You're not just bolting up a new transmission to the motor and calling it good. You're not just putting in a sixth gear. And where would that sixth gear go? Does the bike have enough power? Google the KLR gear ratio. You can find that online. And if it's true, and I'm no gear ratio expert, but from what I've heard from other people explaining, that where are you going to put it? You're going to put the sixth gear right at the end, what, for higher top speed? But the motorcycle doesn't produce enough power to be able to use that sixth gear. So are you going to have a more close ratio transmission down low, and the fifth gear is really the same ratio as, well, the new sixth gear would be the same ratio as the current fifth gear? Thus, you really didn't add anything except add one more gear for maybe lower range. I thought the first gear on the KLR650, the 2013 that we had as a loaner from Kawasaki, was pretty dang low. It tractored up everything. And then all we did was add a smaller front tooth sprocket, I believe. Maybe we even added a larger rear. I don't remember. I think it was just a smaller front tooth, and that thing was like a tractor. I mean, it took away from the top speed, but you don't buy a KLR 650 for the top speed. Now, the other complaint people have is the 24 pounds. Oh my God, it gained 24 pounds. Now, first of all, was the previous weight weigh-in accurate? Because most motorcycle manufacturers don't really give an accurate reading. Some have partial fuel tank fills, some have no fluids whatsoever. You know, you got your dry weight, your wet weight, and even wet weight can be deceiving. Wet weight can mean half the tank is full. It doesn't mean it's a full tank. And remember, the KLR650 carries a lot of fuel. So if that's a full tank, then that's the weight is a lot of being fuel. And what are you going to do? Not have fuel? Thus, you're going to have a dry weight. And dry weight, no fork oil, no nothing. So that really doesn't tell you much of anything at all. So the best we can go by is wet weight, and people are saying, oh, it's 24 pounds more heavier than the previous. Let's assume they weighed them the same way. Okay, they added fuel injection. That's the big selling point on the KLR, that they added fuel injection. And 24 pounds. Honestly, we could all gain to lose probably 20 pounds. Most people, most riders that I see, no offense to you, but you could lose a little weight yourself, and there you go. 20 pounds saved. So we really won't know. And then you get some people that are like, well, you know, the cost of the bike, I'll just buy a Yamaha T7. Well, good luck. I've been on the list. You know, where are these T7s? They're not bringing many in, so I'll probably have a 2022 by the time I get a call that, hey, we have a T7 for you. And then hope my luck it'd be some weird oddball color, because they'll change the color scheme, and I probably will be like, no, I'll wait for the next one. But, you know, it's not like there's a lot of bikes out there to choose from, so it all depends when Kawasaki brings in these bikes and how many they'll have, and people might just buy them to buy them, whether it's the right buy or not, because there's no other bikes. So Yamaha T7, I was told by the dealer, and my understanding was this was included in the prep fee, would be $10,600. Obviously I would have tax too, but let's not look at that. So I'm going to assume what my dealer said, $10,600. Figure shipping prep on the Adventure KLR, which is going to have the fog lamps or running lamps, whatever you want to call those, and the guards, and I think side cases. And that's going to run $8,000. So figure with prep $8,500. Easy math, and we'll just say $10,500 for the T7. So $2,000 more for Yamaha T7. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. Now, some of us forget, a lot of people don't have a lot of money, and they want to get into motorcycles, and maybe they want to buy a new motorcycle, and $2,000, that's a lot of gear. That's a lot of maybe maintenance on the bike, oil changes, what have you, farkles, all that good stuff. You know, that's a lot of money. You know, a lot of us take that for granted. Even I do from time to time, like, well, I can afford that, so, you know, why can't other people? Well, most people cannot. $2,000 to a lot of people is a lot of money, people. Come on. I mean, you got to think outside of your own shoes here. $2,000 might not be much to you, so yeah, you would pick the T7 because, hey, 2,000 bucks, not a big deal. Now to somebody else, that's a big deal. And it keeps that bike, the KLR650, priced right, low as possible. And of course they have the base model, and then they have the Traveler, and then the Adventure. So somebody could just buy the base model if they're real budget and not worry about any of that other stuff, and basically be getting the same bike. I mean, that's probably the wiser decision. And isn't that then like $6,800? I forget what they say the MSRP is going to be. So for $6,800, you know, versus $10,600, a lot of people can afford that price. So figure with prep, so they're in the low sevens. So say you're in the low 7,500 versus 10.6, because Yamaha doesn't have many levels to it. Now, you can add some farkles to it, you know, crash protection, this and that. So I mean, I guess if we compare bike to bike and say, well, let's add the crash protection like the KLR650 has. Let's add the fog lights like the KLR650 has. Well, then that's not a 10.6 T7. That's probably what, closer to $12,000 by the time you add stuff. 11.5. Let's figure 1,000 more, 11.6. So, then that's could be a $3,000 difference. Now you just gain that difference in price. Like, wow, that's a lot of money that you could buy a KLR, have $3,000, and go do a trip. So, I don't understand where people are coming from that think the new KLR 650 is not a good idea. It's at the price point that people know the KLR 650. If you raise that price point by developing a sixth gear, which if you're going through that hassle, if you understand manufacturing and the tooling processes and how much it costs to design a case and the mold and all that, all those hours, that stuff has all been done in the past. Kawasaki has paid for all that. They have paid for that, the frame jigs and the plastic molds and this and that. So, when you start doing huge changes, the price of the product is going to go up because, especially a bike that's been around for so long, it's crazy. That's why typical Japanese manufacturing, like the automotive industry, like with Honda Civic, for example, they keep that model around for a long time. Not much changes. They might change some body work to make it different, but that's fairly reasonable. They don't go through and change drastically, because if they were to do that, the price would go up because the tooling is then not paid for. Through the manufacturer eyes, your best bet is to pay for your tooling, still be able to sell a product, and you now make more money because all your expenses have been paid for. Well, not all of them, obviously, employee salaries and all that, but that tooling costs a lot of money. I worked for a company who owned a place that made like the dies, I think that's what they're called, for like making cylinder heads and other metal parts for the automotive industry. They were like, yeah, it could be $50,000 or it could be $500,000, because it depends. Manufacturer makes revisions and they have to make a new mold, and the price just keeps going up. And maybe that mold, maybe it didn't work, how they thought, so then they redesign it. So making a whole new engine takes a lot of money. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, okay, why don't they take an engine from another bike and put it in the KLR 650? Well, then it's really not a KLR 650 anymore, right? I mean, people know the KLR for what it is. You start making those drastic changes, is the market going to accept it? I say Kawasaki is late to the game, honestly, for a venture bike. They're late to the game. Honda came in pretty late with the African Twin, but they came in. And then they came in strong. They have the, what was it, the 230, the 250L. And so they've kind of been doing things to, expand their dual sport / adventure line. Suzuki's also very late to the game if they were to come in. I don't think they will, because the market is pretty heavily saturated with adventure bikes. And are people going to keep buying adventure bikes? I don't know. I mean, maybe, but it's a hard one for them to, predict. Predicting trends and market trends. That's what it is. You're predicting a market trend, and it's hard for companies to do that. Sometimes, things become popular without anyone knowing they're going to become popular. So, anyways, that's just my beef. People just keep saying they can add a sixth gear. You can't just add a sixth gear. It's not that easy. If it was that easy, they would just do it. And don't say, well, my WR250, well, that was designed with a sixth gear. So don't give me that BS. You can't just add a sixth gear. And if you're trying to say, yes, you can, you obviously have never worked in a manufacturing plant in your life, because that's not how it works. You're going to have a total redesign. And if you're on a motorcycle, when it's all one component, you're going to just design a whole new engine to please everybody. Then you're going to have a 6 gear. Maybe it will be 800, but then the price of that bike just went up. It went up to $12,000, maybe $14,000. So good luck with that. Anyways, just had to get that off my chest because everyone going on about this KLR650. I say let's wait, let's see it come out. Let's see how it does with the fuel injection. And, you know, maybe it'd be a pretty good budget bike, even at the $8,000. So let's give it some chance and maybe get some new riders out here riding. Isn't that what we really want? New people to come into our sport? I think so. I mean, that's what I want. So anyways, take care. Stay well, my friends. Have a good one. Bye.